Good evening. This is Maestro Critello with a Company of Heroes 2 cast. Another one. Our first player right here today is Igglund. Igglund, strange name, as the playing as the Soviet Union. Our other player is Symbiosis, playing as the Ostheer. So we have Symbiosis again. He is a very good player, one of the, as I understand it, one of the best Company of Heroes players in general. Not much has happened yet other than Symbiosis has put down his infantry company, and if we look over at his side for a second, he has started building a grenadier squad. Now, one of the interesting things for the Soviet Union and that Igglund has done is that he has actually not built a production building yet. He only has his regimental field headquarters. And the reason he can do that is that the Soviet Union, out of their starting field headquarters, they can get both their combat engineers and conscripts. So they get their builder unit as well as their most basic infantry unit that is basically just the kind of like the backbone of their army, at least to start out early on in the game. In fact, we have 2 conscripts out on the field right now, probably more on the way. One of the things we can take a look at here in Company of Heroes 2 is that if you take a look at the map on the bottom, it's actually not just are the points colored, but like the whole area where that point is colored basically for that person. And what that means is in Company of Heroes, not only do you control the point, you control the area, and the areas are linked. So a resource point actually does not give you any resources, even if it's capped, if it's not linked. So it needs to be touching another area that you have capped, and all of those areas need to be ultimately touching back to your base. So we see the combat engineers are here. Another cover-to-cover fight, one of those naked gunfights where they're just right next to each other. Both are in green cover right now, so taking much less damage, but it's still a ridiculous fight. They're drawing roughly even. The combat engineers are supposed to be a little bit better at fighting than the pioneers, the combat engineers from the Soviet Union, as opposed to the pioneers of the Ostheer. And we did see that Symbiosis did retreat his pioneers out of there. Was probably expecting that if he kept his units his pioneers in that fight much longer, he possibly could have lost his entire pioneer squad. As it is, Symbiosis, it looks like he did get his pioneer squad out there, and they're actually almost vet 1, which is actually really, really nice. I mean, well, it would probably be very nice if he puts a flamer on it and then he has a vet 1 pioneer squad. We have yet another cover-to-cover fight, just going right up to the cover. It actually looks like the conscripts are not quite in cover. Now, in Company of Heroes 2, there's actually an indicator right here that you can see that green little shield next to the grenadier icon, indicating that they are, in fact, in cover. And we didn't see that for the conscripts, so I'm guessing that they weren't exactly in cover. We now have an MG42 heavy machine gun out for Symbiosis. This is a suppression team for the Ostheer. It has a wide firing arc, as you can see right here, and it suppresses very quickly. It makes a very nice sound as well. It's the MG42 was, I believe, it was probably considered the best machine gun of the war, and it was considered such a good design that it influenced many future machine gun designs. In particular, the American M60. And it was also very feared because it had a rate of fire of 1,200 rounds per minute. Now, the machine gun is set up in a spot. Oh, it's going to... Oh, it's not in a good spot at all. It's probably just going to have to retreat out of there. Some of these conscripts oorah to run very quickly. Oorah is an ability that the conscripts have. It's very much like Fleet of Foot from Dawn of War. It does cost some munitions to use, though it's a very nominal cost of, I believe, about 5 munitions to use oorah. Now, I'd say overall map control has gone in favor of Igglund. He is playing as the Soviet Union. Igglund has 4 conscripts, so he's gone for a 4 conscript opening. Typically, right now, basically just getting a lot of conscripts is supposed to be a pretty powerful build in Company of Heroes 2, at least right now. And what I've been hearing, what I've been told, and what I've just seems to be the prevailing opinion right now is that the Soviet Union is right now a bit better than the Ostheer. I think one of the things that has to do with that is actually the effectiveness and cost effectiveness of the conscripts. Basically, that you get this cheap six-man infantry unit. You can get it without building a production building. They have a lot of versatility and functionality with that Ura ability, making them good for flanking, as well as having a Molotov cocktail and an anti-tank grenade. That Molotov cocktail being probably a very good early garrison counter from the Soviet Union. And I'd say a better early garrison counter than the early garrison counters that the Ostheer has. So conscripts right here, some of these conscripts right here are hiding behind a tree. It looks like a Symbiosis did put down some mines. These are teller mines, so that they are only triggered by vehicles. So infantry can just walk right over them, but I think they will pretty much instantly kill any light vehicles that could come out from Igglund, which certainly could happen if Igglund builds a special rifle command and decides to go for a scout car. I think his combat engineers are building, they're actually building, they did build the special rifle command, but they did not go for the scout car. They're now building the mechanized armor camp, which is something I like to do when I play Soviet Union. Go straight from the special rifle command to the mechanized armor camp. Now, the interesting thing about teching is a little different in this game than in Dawn of War. The Ostheer techs has a linear tech tree, somewhat similar to how teching is in Dawn of War, but the Soviet Union is quite a bit different. At the start, you can choose to pick either the special rifle command or the support weapon camp, and then you can, after that, you can build either of the two vehicle buildings. You get your choice. So getting that mechanized armor camp, one of the things is that means he will have very early access, if he needs it, to the Su-85 tank destroyer. So if Symbiosis decides to go for a vehicle, Igglund could very quickly have a very powerful counter to even a very heavy tank. That was a rifle grenade that flew right on top of these conscripts. Only killed one model, but still brought the squad down to about half health, and now we have Grenadiers just charging in, getting right up there. But the Grenadiers, let's see, they're at 3 models now. Where's that MG? I hear that MG42 firing, obviously a very loud machine gun. It had a very distinctive sound precisely because it shot so many rounds so quickly. 1,200 rounds per minute. So Igglund, he has actually put out some shock troops. These shock troops, you did not see that in my previous cast, because shock troops are a doctrinal unit, and the Soviet doctrines, the infantry unit you're going to get are either shock troops or guard rifles. Last time we saw guard rifles, the guard rifles were a light anti-tank unit with PCRS anti-material rifles. These shock troops are a close range unit equipped with PPSH submachine guns, extremely good in close range, and will murder the Grenadiers if they just charge up to the Grenadiers. So it looks like Igglund has picked a doctrine. I don't remember the exact name of the doctrine, and you actually can't see the doctrine after it has been chosen. But the doctrine he picked will allow him, obviously it allowed him to get the shock troops. It will also allow his conscripts, those basic units that he got, which he still has 3 of them, although he lost 1. It will allow them to repair, so that will be very good if Igglund decides to go for some kind of vehicle-heavy play. He will also have access to the ISU-152 heavy assault gun, although it's still quite a ways off before we might even see that. Now, on the other side of things, Symbiosis, he has built, again, the Ostheer teching is linear, although there are ways you can skip it. You have to, the way the teching works for the Ostheer is that you have to tech to the tier. As we can see, here's Battle Phase 1, Battle Phase 2, and Battle Phase 3. So those are the tiers. You have to tech to the tiers, and then you also have to build the production building. So you can tech to a tier and then skip the production building if you want. And then just go to the next tier and then build that production building. But you still have to tech linearly to the tiers. Now, Symbiosis has gone for... Ooh, I like the doctrine that Symbiosis has gone for. He's gone for a doctrine that will eventually allow him to get the Tiger Tank. But Symbiosis... Oh, God! What just happened? Oh, okay. So Symbiosis just lost a unit, I think, to a mine. But he does have these Panzer Grenadiers out here. But now we do have that Su-85 tank destroyer. A little premature from Igglund. He has the Su-85 tank destroyer out. It is mainly an anti-tank tank. It is considered an assault gun, which means that it has a gun mounted on the front. It does not have a turreted gun, so it cannot really circle around another tank. But it does... this tank is mainly for killing other tanks. It does not have a machine gun, and its gun does not have very good accuracy against infantry, so it will not be very good against infantry. So it's a little premature for Igglund to have this Su-85 tank destroyer. It will not do much to Symbiosis' infantry. I guess the best that I could say for it is that it will just make... basically, it's just a preemptive threat, and Symbiosis can't get a tank with the intent of catching Igglund off guard, because Igglund is now ready because he has this Su-85. And that's one of the reasons that it can be nice to go for that mechanized armor camp instead of the tank battalion command, since the tank battalion command doesn't really give you great vehicles for taking out other tanks, especially heavier tanks. It gives you the T-34, which can ram to disable a tank, but you need something to follow it up, something like this Su-85 tank destroyer. Now, one of the things that the Su-85 can do, I suppose, is that it can shoot at this building. It will damage the building, although it will take quite a few shots to destroy this building. And it doesn't... yeah. But map control is going in favor of Symbiosis. Symbiosis does have a pack anti-tank gun. This is just an anti-tank gun. It's not a tank. It costs no fuel to field, so it's cheaper, much cheaper to field than an actual tank, while still giving you anti-tank capabilities. This building is now taking quite a bit of damage, and Symbiosis is getting his Grenadiers out of there. But he should actually just stay here and capture the point, although his Grenadiers did actually get hit by that Su-85. Excuse me. So this machine gun right here, I think, will capture this point, and they are actually setting up while capturing the point. That is, again, something that is new to Company of Heroes 2, was not in Dawn of War or Vanilla Company of Heroes. And it basically just... you can actually defend the point with the machine gun while capturing it, which is exactly what happened there. He halted the approach of those conscripts and actually captured that VP. So the Su-85 has... oh, we now have a Katyusha shooting some rockets, although not hitting a whole lot. Actually getting a few hits off on those Panzer Grenadiers, and actually preventing them from capturing this point that is preventing all of these resources on the bottom. This fuel point, this regular strategic point, this munitions point. By not having this point, all of those resources on the bottom are not going to Symbiosis because they are not linked to his territory. He needs to capture this point right here if he wants to get the resources from this fuel point as well as both these strategic points. So conscripts are in the building right here. As we can see, the garrisons in Company of Heroes 2, first of all, there are just a lot more of them. And they are just generally seem to be a bit more useful. Conscripts here. So we have a dead tank carcass. This is a wrecked Panzer IV. I'm actually wondering if Symbiosis had a Panzer IV that I never actually saw, which would be quite embarrassing, but nevertheless... we have a dead Panzer IV here, which is actually giving these conscripts cover. Again, we can see by the green shield icon that the conscripts are, in fact, in cover. So the MG42 backed off. Now, the interesting thing is, in Company of Heroes 2, and also in the original Company of Heroes, there is, aside from suppression, there is also a condition called pinned. And you go from, when you are getting suppressed, you will eventually get pinned if you continue to get shot at by a suppression weapon. One of the things we saw up there is that your units can continue to capture even while suppressed, but once they start getting pinned, they will not capture anymore. Now, Symbiosis has that pack anti-tank gun. It seems to be taking some hits from these shock troops, Anti-tank guns, unlike las cannons and bright lances from Dawn of War, cannot retreat, so you need to be very careful about putting them in a good position. They are very, very important for taking on tanks, but if you leave them out of position, you can really risk losing an anti-tank gun. And there's also the risk of getting your anti-tank gun decrewed, and then your opponent can either destroy the anti-tank gun to deny its use to you, or they can recapture it to use it for themselves. So we had some Panzer Grenadiers. We actually have double Panzer Grenadiers out for Symbiosis. Panzer Grenadiers are somewhat similar to the shock troops of the Soviet Union in that they are mainly a close quarters squad. Now the Panzer Grenadiers have the STG-44 assault rifle, the first assault rifle ever made. Makes them very good in close quarters combat, although the Panzer Grenadiers only have 4 models as opposed to the 6 of the shock troops. Now, I don't know the exact stats of the weapons, so I don't know which one is necessarily better. Let's just take a look at those shock troops. Oh, looking pretty cool. Got hit by a rifle grenade. They're shooting those PPSHs. But my impression is that the shock troops are a bit better. This is especially true if you decide to get Panzerschrecks on your Grenadiers to make them work as anti-vehicle. Now, Symbiosis has got his Opel Blitz truck. That's one of the first abilities from the doctrine he has chosen. This will allow him to get more resources from his points. So it just increases resource income, giving, since it's lockdown on the standard territory point, which gives fuel and munitions, he will be getting an increase in both fuel and munitions. So shock troops are charging this Grenadier squad. These Grenadiers do have an MG42, but I think that's just straight up a win for the shock troops. Shock troops even tried to throw a grenade, but Symbiosis retreated out of there and did not take any damage on his Grenadiers or on his retreating Grenadiers. One of the things that I actually don't really like about Company of Heroes 2 is that you cannot select retreating units. Look, I'm trying to select that retreating conscript squad, and I can't select it. And it's not that big of a deal, but it's still something that I kind of wish you could do. In part, I personally like to reassign control groups whenever I lose units. And I've taken losses and I've retreated some squads. And I like to do that on retreat because I'm not trying to micro my units to have them fight. So Symbiosis still does not have much in terms of actual tanks. He just has the anti-tank gun, so that Su-85 is still somewhat uncontested, and yet at the same time not really threatening Symbiosis' infantry that much. But Symbiosis has a decent infantry force. He's got double Grenadiers, both with MG42s, as well as double Panzer Grenadiers that he has just kept with their STG-44s instead of getting Panzerschrecks. So he's got some good anti-infantry firepower. I think that's somewhat important, or maybe not. It is important, especially considering it usually seems like the Soviets have a bit of an advantage with infantry firepower, usually just by having so many conscripts and by having those shock troops, although it looks like Igglund has lost some of his conscripts. He only has 2 left. We had another Katyusha shot. Actually decrewed this pack gun. Luckily, this pack is still fairly close to Symbiosis' base. He can just have one of his Grenadiers recrew it, or even his Pioneers recrew it, so that he can just get that gun back again. Although once you recrew it, it does lose any veterancy it had from its original crew, which makes sense, I guess, because the original crew are the ones with the veterancy. We actually have double Su-85s out. Now, I guess one of the things that's good about that is that if Igglund has seen this Opel Blitz truck and knows that Symbiosis has gone for this doctrine, he knows to expect Tigers. And he's very well prepared for a Tiger with double Su-85s. Igglund is actually looking a little weak on infantry. In particular, he does not have any combat engineers, so he cannot get a new tech building without building a new combat engineer squad. Luckily, he can repair his Su-85s because with this doctrine, the conscripts can repair. Igglund is actually getting a decap with his shock troops on the fuel point for Symbiosis. Symbiosis probably does not have sight with his machine gunner on these shock troops, so now Symbiosis will not be getting that fuel income. We have another Katyusha barrage actually about to hit Igglund's own conscripts with that Katyusha. That's that unit that you see shooting all those rockets. It's an artillery vehicle, somewhat like the Manticore, except it has an enormous spread, so it often misses things unless you use its ability. It does have an ability that it's called a concentrated barrage, which is just more accurate, but that does cost munitions. Although, that being said, Igglund is running quite a surplus of munitions, so he could use that ability. Igglund is also, he has enough command points that he can get this ISU 152 assault gun. He does not yet have the resources for it, though. In fact, he's nowhere near even close to getting the resources for it, so he probably will not get it, to be honest. We do have Panzer Grenadiers from Symbiosis, now have been upgraded to have Panzerschrecks. This will make them much, much better as anti-tank. Although it sacrifices a lot of the anti-infantry capabilities of the squad, especially with only 2 members, and only 1 member getting very close to dying. Symbiosis is having a lot of trouble now with that Katyusha. That Katyusha is really devastating him. He also dropped a Panzerschreck, so Igglund could actually pick that up with a unit like his conscript squad or even his shock troops, and that would give him some very nice anti-vehicle capabilities, or anti-tank capabilities as it's called in Company of Heroes 2. Just a slight terminological difference. In Company of Heroes, you say anti-tank or AT instead of anti-vehicle or AV. But we now do have that Tiger out for Symbiosis, a huge tank. It's just this big metal box. Very, very powerful tank. It was supposed to be like the best tank of its time, the best tank of the war. In gameplay terms, it's something that's going to be good both against infantry and against other tanks. But as I said, Igglund is already pretty well prepared, and he did in fact pick up that Panzerschreck and put it on his shock troops. I think it's actually a good choice to put the Panzerschreck on the shock troops, since the main disadvantage, the shock troops are really extremely good as anti-infantry, and their main weakness is that they do nothing to vehicles. The conscripts at least have an anti-vehicle grenade that you can use to scare a vehicle. It won't do a whole lot of damage, but it will often cause a vehicle critical, like a destroyed or damaged engine, probably just a damaged engine, which will really threaten it and make it more vulnerable to follow-up AV that can actually kill it, or follow-up AT. Now, with these shock troops having a Panzerschreck, they're going to be extremely good as anti-infantry still. They're only sacrificing 1 out of 6 PPSHs. Actually, just, yeah, 1 out of 6 PPSHs. And then they actually have anti-tank, and pretty solid anti-tank. Certainly that Panzerschreck is a lot better as anti-tank than the PTRS rifles that the Guard rifles have for the Soviet Union. So the Su-85s are shooting, although they really just aren't really that great as anti-tank. The Tiger is actually pretty smart that he's keeping it at range. He's even basically sighting with his Grenadiers and taking shots on the shock troops, although they actually seem to be missing. So maybe the main cannon on the Tiger, well, there it actually did seem to hit the shock troops. Oh no, we have Panzer Grenadiers with 1 model. They will retreat out of there. Oh, luckily the entrance to that building was on the other side, so the shock troops were not right there to finish off those Panzer Grenadiers, but that could have been a dead Panzer Grenadier. That could have been Symbiosis dropping more Panzerschrecks and giving them to Igglund. This Tiger now does have engine damage. This will reduce its top speed, so that's somewhat like being snared in Dawn of War 2, except for the fact that this snare is not time-bound. It does not go away after a certain amount of time. It only goes away after the Tiger is restored to full health. And we have some kind of airstrike. This is going to be that, it's a precision bombing run on the Tiger. Oh my god, killed the Tiger and the units repairing it. So a big play by Igglund, very nice. So again, you don't lose that that engine damage just over time. You need to actually repair the Tiger with a repair unit, like the Pioneers. And now Symbiosis doesn't even have Pioneers. So that was pretty well played by Igglund. And that he used, I'll switch back to his side, Igglund used the IL-2 precision bombing strike from his doctrine, basically. And that's just basically a nuke or an off-map artillery strike, or rather, not artillery. It's an off-map bombing run from the Soviet Union. And now, Igglund is actually ready to do another one of those bombing strikes. He has the munitions. The bombing strike is off cooldown. We saw how powerful it can be right there. Took out Pioneers that were trying to repair a Tiger and took out that damaged Tiger. Another Katyusha going in. Oh my god, these Grenadiers, Vet 3 Grenadiers just might get killed. If we go back over to Symbiosis' side, he does not have any vehicles. Symbiosis, I don't know if he's going for another Tiger. He probably is. He does not have either of the vehicle production buildings built. Now, one of the interesting things about this game is that when you pick a doctrine that has a doctrine-specific vehicle, it is a call-in. So you don't need to build the production building. You don't need to build a production building for it. So that means that Symbiosis can have access to this big heavy tank, the Tiger, without... Oh, and that actually was another bombing run that I just totally missed, but it didn't look like it did that much that time. Symbiosis can have access to that Tiger, even though he doesn't have either the support armor core or the heavy panzer core. He only has basically his infantry production buildings and his other building that builds some very light vehicles. Now I can only assume that with the fuel, well, Symbiosis probably has to go for another Tiger. He could also potentially go for a new anti-tank gun. He would probably want something to deal with all these units. We have double Su-85s and double Katyushas. Now those Katyushas are really like a saturation unit. As you can see, they miss a lot, but they just shoot so many rockets. VPs are actually in favor of Igglund. He is at 448 to 246. And he's actually, oh wow, so Igglund now actually has a lot of resources. And wow, he lost his Su-85 though. Those double Panzer Grenadiers, that's quite a mouthful, just rush forward. Now these Su-85s, they are powerful in terms of their damage, their armor penetration, so they will be good at taking out heavy tanks, but they are themselves not really that durable. I mean, they're moderately durable. So they will be good at countering tanks, but not quite head-to-head. And it helps to have two of them. Taking out one of those Su-85s is going to make it a lot easier for Symbiosis once he eventually gets the resources to get that new Tiger out on the field, which I can only assume he's getting. We have Vet 3 Panzer Grenadiers shooting at Vet 3 conscripts. I think the Vet 3 Panzer Grenadiers are going to win, except for the fact that they have Katyusha rockets flying right on top of them. Also even flying kind of on top of the conscripts, too. Oh, now definitely the Grenadiers are getting the worst end of that, but I think they were kind of winning that fight on the firepower of that MG42 light machine gun. These conscripts, certainly good, probably good early anti-infantry firepower, although I don't know about their scaling, aside from when they do get levels. Let's actually take a look. Let's go back to Igglund's side. Let's select one of his conscripts. Now the conscripts, with their at Vet 2, they do get an increase. Do get an increase in accuracy. Now with double Katyushas, that's going to be a lot of... It's going to be very hard for Symbiosis to capture points when he really needs to if Igglund decides to just bomb... just saturate the victory point with rockets. One of the good things, though, is now... Actually, there are some good things about Symbiosis's positioning right now, his army composition versus Igglund's. Now, Symbiosis has Panzer Grenadiers, 2 Panzer Grenadiers with Panzer Shreks. He will probably also have a Tiger coming out when he has the fuel. That will actually be very good for taking out these Katyushas as well as the Su-85 if he can get close to them. And I would say Igglund is mainly going to have to rely on really making sure that he can intercept those Panzer Grenadiers when he needs to with his shock troops to keep those Katyushas alive. Because if Symbiosis can just sneakily get around like over here and hit those Katyushas with the Panzer Shreks on those Panzer Grenadiers, certainly from 2 Panzer Grenadiers, he will probably just straight up take them out. And then I actually think once Symbiosis gets his Tiger tank, I don't think there's going to be much stopping Symbiosis from going over there and taking out those Katyushas with the Tiger. We have some more Katyushas trying to go for these new Pioneers. Now, as we see so many of those rockets are missing. And here is that new Tiger. Now, again, that Tiger is right now. Symbiosis actually has the advantage. I really thought he was at a bit of a disadvantage when he lost his first Tiger, but now with his second Tiger, he should really just come over here and take out these Katyushas. There's not a whole lot to stop him. It's basically just the Su-85 as well as his 1 shock troop with Panzer Shreks, which is actually getting shot at by the Tiger. So the shock troops are starting to take some shots off. Now, Symbiosis is trying to do exactly what I've been saying. Unfortunately, part of what's happening is that he's taking a lot of damage from the Katyushas on approach on his Panzer Grenadiers. Now, the Katyushas will not be able to threaten that Tiger anywhere near as much, and I really think that Symbiosis needs to not focus on these conscripts and instead just drive over there and take out those Katyushas. He will take out both of those Katyushas very easily. I actually have a feeling that the Tiger will one-shot each Katyusha. So if he just gets over there at all, he will take out a Katyusha. Unfortunately, it's a little late now, and Igglund has another Su-85. It's still possible, although it would actually be very risky for him to drive the Tiger right over there with 2 Su-85s. Shock troops have been suppressed and pinned by this MG42 that, I don't know if that's a new MG42. It's probably an MG42 that has been decrewed and recrewed. And now probably decrewed again by all these Katyusha rockets, mostly missing, going way behind that MG. But Symbiosis knows that if even some of them hit, that could be a decrewed MG, and he does not want that to happen. Tiger now has another damaged engine, so that's just something that happens. Engines can be damaged or destroyed, restricting speed or immobilizing it entirely. There are other tank criticals, just basically like status effects that a tank can have in this game. Its main gun can be destroyed, which can prevent it from firing its main gun. You could still fire the machine guns, but the main gun, the tank cannon, can get destroyed. There are also quite a few others. And we actually... Was that a bombing run? No, that was not a bombing run. That was a strafing run, I think, from Symbiosis. This is a ability from the Germans. Actually, I really don't know. I can't even tell. And Symbiosis is actually pushing now. He's almost taking out... that one Katyusha will probably get hit by... Yeah, he's in range right now. We do have... I think that's the bombing run. Unfortunately, the Tiger is now exposing its rear armor to the Su-85s. Oh, that was a fragmentation bomb from Symbiosis. And now he's going to... One Panzer Grenadier squad needs to go. One Panzer Grenadier squad does retreat. The other one's still here, still with the Panzer Shreks. Might take out this. All right, so one Katyusha is down from the Tiger. The Tiger should probably take out, will take out that one too. Both Katyushas down. And now we also have an Su-85, going to take some rear armor hits from these nearly dead Panzer Grenadiers. But I think if the Tiger turns, it can turn its cannon around. Oh no, I think with that kind of positioning, the Panzer Grenadiers need to retreat out of there because they will get killed if they stay in there against all these conscripts. But I think the Tiger may just be able to even kill the Su-85, which is why Igglund is trying to micro away so that he can not lose his Su-85. It's still quite close, but Igglund is playing smart, trying to block line of sight to that Tiger, while the Tiger oh my god, that's actually absolutely terrible situation for Symbiosis. His tank was not completely destroyed, this Tiger, and it is now being recrewed by Igglund. So now Igglund is going to have a Tiger. It has no health and he needs to repair it, but that means Igglund has a Tiger. Symbiosis just lost what I believe is, yeah, it's got to be his only tank. Igglund, on the other hand, still has an Su-85, a Vet 2 Su-85, and now he has a Tiger. So, Vet 3 Panzer Grenadiers fighting these Vet 3 shock troops. I would say, I'm guessing with at least with full health, maybe the Panzer Grenadiers will have an advantage over the shock troops. And certainly if they're going to throw oh, nice grenade, juicy grenade shot. Took out two of the models. Yeah, they definitely were winning there. So, let's see. Symbiosis is not in such a great situation. He's probably going to have to... Now, I guess one of the things with the way he's chosen to do things, with the production buildings that he's built, as well as the doctrine that he has, I think he kind of has to go for Tigers. Because it might be too much of an investment. Actually, I don't know. He could go for another production building. But I think for the cost of that other production building, he could put out a Tiger. I mean, the cost of the other production building, as well as getting an inferior tank, would probably cost as much as just straight up getting a Tiger. It's just a little... I feel like it's a little hard to justify keep getting those Tigers when Igglund has a Tiger of his own. He also has a Su-85. Now, one of the good things is it actually takes quite a bit longer to repair vehicles in this game than in Dawn of War 2. So these vehicles at such low health, they need repairs to be before he can really put them back out on the field. And that's actually going to give Symbiosis a lot of time to just go out on the field. Now, Symbiosis has actually gotten a lot of Panzer Grenadiers. He has actually, he lost one of his regular Grenadiers, so now he has Panzer Grenadiers. He's got 4 of them. That gives him a lot of anti-infantry firepower. 2 of them do have Panzer Shreks, so they won't actually have a lot of anti-infantry firepower. But he does have 3 of his Panzer Grenadiers at Vet 3. That's pretty nice. He's preserved them pretty well, and they are going to be certainly the ones without the Panzer Shreks will be beastly in close quarters with just those STG-44s. And I don't know how much the accuracy boost that the Panzer Grenadiers get from Vet 3 will help those Panzer Shreks. Oh, but they're about to get hit by some Katyushas. I think Symbiosis could maybe not blob these Panzer Grenadiers up, split them up a bit, because as it is, he's getting very close to losing a Vet 3 Panzer Grenadier squad. Needs to retreat it. Please retreat it. What's probably happening is that he probably has both of those Panzer Grenadiers, or maybe, I'm speculating right now, he might have those Panzer Grenadiers on the same control group, so he's just kind of microing them around together, almost as if they were one squad, since they both are going to save the CERN purpose. New Tiger out for Symbiosis, and an old Tiger out for Igglund, a stolen one. Now, this is going to be tough for Symbiosis having one... It's a Tiger versus a Tiger, but Igglund also has that Su-85. Now, the Su-85 is still in base, still getting repairs, so it's actually just a Tiger versus a Tiger. Although that being said, Symbiosis does have a better right now with the Su-85 off the field for Igglund. Symbiosis is going to have the better support anti-tank, mostly in the form of these double Panzer Shrek Panzer Grenadiers. Such a mouthful to say that. And he still kept alive one regular Grenadier squad, which that regular Grenadier squad at Vet 3, also with that MG42, will still be quite beastly against infantry. Tiger's going around just to harass some of these conscripts. The conscripts are absolutely no match for a Tiger, so they need to retreat out of there. And I like that Symbiosis is using his MG. He's not really being too aggressive with it. I mean, it's a stationary weapon, but specifically I like that he's using it as a victory point denial weapon and using it on the side VPs. Now, one of the things that happens in just one of the ways that people play in Relic RTSs, both Dawn of War and Company of Heroes, is that there's something called a back cap. And if you are watching this channel, you probably already know what that is. But people back cap. A lot of fighting and battles often tend to congregate in the middle of maps, while the sides are often kind of left relatively basically just not as much happens there. So when people back cap, they'll often just send one weak infantry unit to the side. And having a unit like a machine gun, which will just suppress that unit, will basically prevent it from prevent that infantry unit from capping. That's especially true in Company of Heroes, where there are no jump or teleporting units. Unfortunately, Symbiosis' Tiger is pretty much losing this fight because there's both the Su-85, and he loses the Tiger entirely. Unfortunately, the Su-85 still had line of sight. He should have moved it back more so that it did not have line of sight. And Symbiosis is just rolling out these Tigers. Let's see, he cannot yet afford another one. He's actually quite a ways off, still needs double the fuel, so he's not in a good situation right now. He has evened out the VPs a lot. Certainly he was relatively low on VPs for a while. And I'd say probably the best play that Symbiosis could make right now, or at least just a potentially good play he could make. Right now the Su-85 and the Tiger are isolated. They are isolated because the Tiger needs repairs. I feel like there's not a whole lot Symbiosis can do about those two tanks together, but if he can get a flank on the Su-85 with his Panzer Grenadiers, I think he can threaten to take it out. Now, that machine gun that was protecting that bottom VP has been scared off by a new Katyusha from Igglund. Igglund has only one Katyusha right now, but it's well protected by a Tiger.
Remember him.
We have MG42s right here, scaring off a lot of Soviet infantry, and they are in yellow cover just with all the craters that have been created from explosions. And the Panzer Grenadiers are just charging forward. These conscripts need to retreat. Vet 3 conscripts will get wiped. They're getting very close. Luckily, veterancy often significantly increases durability. Veterancy is a little bit different in this game. Obviously, in Dawn of War 2, you just straight up get stat boost. You get stat boost to everything. You get increased health, increased energy, increased damage. It works a bit differently in this game, where you get a specific upgrade for each mark of veterancy. The first mark of veterancy is always an ability, so it doesn't actually change their fighting capabilities unless it's something related to fighting. The second mark of veterancy, well, it's always different for each squad. But Panzer Grenadiers, these Panzer Grenadiers right here, at Vet 2 they get increased armor, making them more durable, and then at Vet 3 they get an increase in weapon accuracy. Now, Symbiosis right now, he is charging in with his Panzer Grenadiers. I think he's targeting the wrong vehicle, though. I think he really needs to go for the Su-85 first. Since the Su-85 is definitely the much less durable of the tanks, it has less ability to protect itself from infantry. And it would just be easier for Symbiosis to take out. So, Symbiosis is, I mean, it's been an interesting game. There were certainly times when I felt like, oh man, Symbiosis is screwed. And then there were times when I felt like, alright, Symbiosis is in a winning position now. So there's a nice ebb and flow to this. We finally have some Pioneer Flamers. I'm surprised to finally see that. Pioneer Flamers Flame units are actually quite a bit better in this game than they are in Dawn of War. You actually want them, or at least so I thought. Oh, Symbiosis lost to Pioneer Squad, but it still certainly makes them much, much better. Especially the Pioneers are very, very weak as an actual fighting unit when they don't have that Flamer. When they have that Flamer, they become pretty good, doing area of effect damage. Can be very good against conscripts, although I would say they still need to be extremely careful about a unit like shock troops. It also allows them to function as an anti-garrison choice. So Symbiosis is inevitably going for another Tiger. I lost count of how many Tigers were in this game. I think 3, and this one that just got called in is going to be the 4th, I think, or is it the 5th? I don't know. But again, I think he needs to prioritize that Su-85 over that Tiger. The Tiger is obviously the bigger threat, but the Su-85 is what's tipping the vehicle balance in Igglund's favor, and it's also much, much easier to take out. And currently, it's also relatively undefended. Although so is the Tiger, but the Tiger is better at defending itself than the Su-85. That being said, of course, I'm looking at this game with no fog of war, so I know exactly where all these units are. Symbiosis may not necessarily know, but I think he should at least be able to reason that the Su-80, certainly at least that the Katyusha is close by Igglund's base. What he probably wants to be careful about, which is certainly something that is smart, is that he wants to be careful about the Su-85 and the Tiger being in the same place, which is something he probably doesn't know whether the Su-85 and the Tiger are in the same place. Right now, obviously, I know that they aren't, and if he can catch that Su-85 isolated with the Tiger, that would put him in a good position. Now, he actually should know that all of these units are here. Unfortunately, he does retreat his Panzer Grenadiers. Those Katyusha rockets are actually being used defensively, so he's in a way almost using those for defense now whenever the Panzer Grenadiers are trying to rush forward to take out his Katyusha as well as his Su-85. So the Tiger is now attacking. Let's take a look at... Symbiosis has a lot of resources. He could actually consider getting an anti-tank gun. That's something that he could use to tip the balance in his favor, since he could really use, I think, another extra source of anti-tank. Because if he has his Tiger and the pack, he's going to have an advantage over Igglund just having the Tiger. He does need to be careful, of course. Igglund still has a bunch of shock troops. And he's got 4 shock troops, in fact, and if those shock troops charge the anti-tank gun, the anti-tank gun will just get decrewed and die. What was that? We see some dying men here, obviously in a lot of pain. What attention to detail. We have some more rockets going off to try to deny that victory point. Wow, that's... I mean, those Katyushas, they're... In a way, they do seem kind of random, just with that huge spread. There's so much potential for them to do a lot if you just get one nice rocket to actually hit. And yet at the same time, oh, a Panzer Grenadier squad got sniped on retreat by that Tiger. And I think that means that Symbiosis, yeah, he just lost a Vet 3 Panzer Grenadier squad. That's a terrible loss. And he does in fact have an anti-tank gun though. And it is about to walk right into some shock troops. Symbiosis also with double mortars, which is very, very interesting. And wow, yeah, I mean his pack gets decrewed. He will need to recrew it, so this could be a little costly trying to keep this tank gun crewed so that he can actually use it against Igglund. Tiger is turning its turret. I think it's going to take a shot at the other Tiger. Okay. I missed it, but Igglund lost his Katyusha. I'm not sure how. Yeah. Oh, wow. So very smart. So it looks like Symbiosis has finally managed to capture, to get the Su-85. And I think that was a precision bombing strike from Igglund, and I think he kind of took out his own Su-85 with the bombing strike. I think he was hoping to take out the Tiger as well, and now that the Tiger actually is in quite a bit of trouble, luckily Igglund's Tiger is about to get flanked by Panzerschrecks, which could be good for him, or rather it could be good for Symbiosis. His Tiger has more health than Symbiosis's, but Symbiosis does have these double Panzerschrecks, double Panzer Grenadier Panzerschrecks with double Panzerschrecks. But I think he will actually get his Tiger out of there. He's actually chasing it with his own Tiger, but he needs to be careful because now there are shock troops, which will definitely win quite handily over these Panzer Grenadiers that are mostly just carrying anti-tank weapons. And the Panzer Grenadiers don't care, but now we have some kind of artillery. Needs to be very careful. What kind of artillery is that? We actually have the strafing run from Symbiosis from his doctrine. That I actually like that ability a lot. It seems to be really good, mainly for suppressing infantry in an area, like basically wherever you want and wherever they are. Now Symbiosis did not manage to kill Igglund's Tiger. Tiger managed to get out of there despite taking rear armor hits from Panzerschrecks, which is pretty nice. This Tiger actually is Vet 1. It does get the Blitzkrieg ability, which allows it to drive faster, and Symbiosis' Tiger is not Vet 1, so that's actually a bit of an advantage that Igglund's Tiger is going to have over Symbiosis's. And I think... So, Symbiosis could also get a top machine gunner on his Tiger to increase its anti-infantry capabilities. He is not getting that for some reason, though. He may be choosing to save up his munitions for fragmentation bombs. Meanwhile, Igglund's Tiger also does actually have that top-mounted machine gunner, so that's going to be yet another advantage that his Tiger is going to have over Igglund's. Now, I guess I was wrong, because I said that it may be a good idea for Symbiosis to go for an anti-tank gun. As it is, he got that anti-tank gun, and he wasn't able to keep it alive just because of all the shock troops on Igglund's side. Now, this Tiger, Igglund's Tiger now has a vehicle critical. It has a engine damage. That means it is effectively snared until it is fully repaired. Symbiosis has most of the map. His Tiger does not have that critical, but he still needs to be careful. I don't think he could have taken on that Tiger because his Tiger had less health. Now, on Symbiosis' side, I often wonder exactly what... These shock troops are really good from the Soviet Union, and it's somewhat hard to deal with them at times. One answer is, of course, a vehicle, since the shock troops don't do anything whatsoever to vehicles unless they have picked up a Panzerschreck. Another answer is a machine gun, and Symbiosis had a machine gun at one point that he could have used to potentially control the shock troops, but it appears that he lost that machine gun, possibly to a Katyusha barrage, which would not be surprising at all. Wow, Symbiosis now actually has a fully repaired Tiger, and he's finally, I think, going to be able to take out Igglund's Tiger. And this could actually be like a GG. Since we actually have a oh no, that wasn't a... He didn't have a fully repaired Tiger, he had a second Tiger, so it's like 5 or 6 Tigers. So, a friend of mine who I play this game with has a little poem or a song. It goes something like, Tiger, Tiger, burning bright in the night, or killing Soviets in the night. Let's try it again. Tiger, Tiger, burning bright, killing Soviets in the night. And this was definitely a tiger-heavy game, and it looks like Symbiosis is taking this. He's kind of just destroying Igglund's units in base. Igglund, I don't think... He has no manpower whatsoever. He has no units, so this has to be the end of the game. Double Tigers. Amazing for... I think it was amazing that Symbiosis was able to hold on in so many situations where it really looked like he was not winning. He had one Tiger. He had an inferior Tiger. Igglund had a better Tiger, and Igglund also had an Su-85. So it was just interesting that he managed to come out on top of that. So right now we're just watching and enjoying the base destruction. This shock troop with Panzerschrecks, the last line of defense against those Tigers. And finally, Igglund concedes. Quite a game. How many Tigers were there? You tell me in the comments. I don't know whether it was... I think it was like 6. 6. I think that's how many Tigers there were. But hope you enjoyed this second Company of Heroes 2 cast. I'll be back for more, as well as Dawn of War 2 cast. Have a good night.